Now, I've had people asking, can you do a video on this team and on that team? I'm kind of bouncing around, and I'm doing this on purpose. Where I look at the standings, I look at news, I look at what's going on, and I say, hey, what team do I want to look at today? And again, these aren't official season previews. Official season previews, of course, I make the custom thumbnails for those, and I make them much longer and more involved than these because we really want to get into what could happen, what might happen, kind of thing. And in this case, I'm just looking at the roster and going, well, what do you think? And with Chicago, we're looking at a roster that's younger than people think it is up front. Now, on the blue line, I do wonder about the long term future of the blue line. And I know there are some very good prospects here, but until a prospect plays in the National Hockey League, we have no way of knowing how good they're going to be. A good example would be Dubois versus Puljujarvi. I think Dubois has been better than was expected in Columbus, and Puljujarvi, of course, has been underwhelming in Edmonton. You can debate about why or how that happens, but that's an example just of how, even with top notch guys, we don't know until they reach the NHL what is going to happen. And with defensemen, that can be even more unpredictable. So when we look at this team, it's tricky because there are rumors that Brendan Perlini might find his way out of town, that Perlini might get moved. And there's going to be Hawks fans that watch this video and go, well, now he's done a video on us, there's going to be a trade that happens. Look at the goalie video he did, and then Garrett Sparks got traded, to which I'd say, right. So Saad, Taves, and Perlini. Let's just say that does end up being the first line. Second line, DeBrincat, Strome, and Kane. That second line is your first line. DeBrincat, I don't think he's even close to his ceiling. I think 50 goals, yeah. The kid is absolutely crazy good. And if we look back to when he was drafted, I said of the day two draft picks, I thought he was a steal. Couldn't believe the Hawks got a steal with him. And I think the sky's the limit. I think 50, yes, put your money down on that, sure. Third line, I went off on my own tangent from here. I went with Sakura, Smith, and Shaw. I know Sakura didn't have a goal last year. It's a little tricky on the left side because Kubalik's expected to come in and play, right? Or Kubalik's expected to come in and play. Could very well be on that third line. Carpenter got signed. Carpenter likely, I think, their 13th forward when everything settles down. As in, once they're done making moves. Down the middle, you've got Kampf, you've got Quenneville, who they brought in, and then there's Doc. Doc is an interesting one. Most teenagers just out of the draft won't come in and play at center. If Doc can play on that left side and play on third line, if he can come in right out of the draft and play, that could change the whole picture for Chicago as well. And then on the right side, they've brought back Andrew Shaw, Kajula, and then there's Nylander that's out there as well. And Nylander can play both wings. So you've got two guys here who may end up over here. This is a fantastic forward group, honestly. This is a really good forward group. So while there may be people who don't like the Andrew Shaw trade, Shaw on the third line, that's pretty good. It's going to make things pretty good, and it gives them a little bit of sandpaper as well, which they've needed. I think they were lacking that this past season. Although, scoring was not really the problem for Chicago. The problem really wasn't the blue line, although at times it had its challenges. But let's talk about the blue line before we get to where the problem came in last year and why they may very well wind up 15, 20 points better this year than they were last year. Keith and Gustafson on the blue line. Gustafson is an unrestricted free agent next summer. So in a contract year, you can expect him to actually get better than the year he just had, which was pretty fantastic. Mata and Seabrook, Dahlstrom and Murphy, and then of course you got Cuckoo, you got Boquist. Boquist is expected to make the team. Bowden, I don't think Bowden makes the team yet, but he could. So you've got two pretty solid defensive prospects, one of which in Boquist is likely to make the team, and another one in Bowden that may give them a tough time in the fall figuring out exactly who's going to make the team and who isn't. And then in net. Their problem last year really, really honestly was Corey Crawford gets hurt. Cam Ward was below average when he was in there. Colin Delia played very well at the beginning, and then the cracks started to show. He ended up, I believe, 6-7 this past season with a 908 save percentage. And his numbers they suffered as the year went along again. I think that's part of the reason why they went out and got Robin Leonard. Also because you can pencil in Crawford for probably an injury or two this year as well. Crawford is an unrestricted free agent next summer. Leonard on a 1-year contract, also unrestricted next summer. Both on contract years. You might end up with both of them having a very solid season. And then, of course, there's Lankinen that's in there, but it doesn't look like they're going to give Lankinen much of a chance. As soon as they signed Leonard, I think that kind of closes the door on Lankinen getting a chance in Chicago. He may have trade value coming out of those World Championships, and they may use that to their benefit and trade him out to get some help with some depth somewhere else. The biggest questions for me with Chicago was this. Are these Seabrook and Keith still being on the blue line? They're all, Keith's gonna end up being a Hall of Famer in all likelihood, or at least on the cusp of it and talked about every year. Seabrook, that contract is a problem, but the player isn't. So his contract is an issue, but the player himself, I don't think is. I don't think he's a problem for the Chicago Blackhawks. Their forward depth is fantastic. Like I said, they were able to score. The problem they had was when Crawford got hurt, there wasn't anybody to step in. There was nobody. And so Crawford, I felt, got rushed back at times. I felt they went to Crawford when they shouldn't have. And I think that hurt the team. This year they don't have to worry because they got Leonard, and then they've got Delia as a number 3. So if something happens to Crawford, they've still got a goaltending tandem at NHL level. That's why I've got 3 goalies on the board instead of 2, because I don't think Crawford will play a full season without injury. And I also think they're going to have to manage his time. I think there's going to be nights where he's not starting or the backup where he's out for maintenance days. I think we're going to see that with Crawford. I'd be very surprised if we don't. Due to his concussion history and just at this point in time, you don't want him getting hurt again. So he may very well have maintenance days where he's not practicing, he's not with the team, he's just off, relaxing and just getting ready for the next time he's going to have to go in. It's going to be a very interesting year because the Central looks fantastic. You've got your defending Stanley Cup champions in St. Louis, Winnipeg, who have lost some oomph in the offseason, absolutely, but should still be a playoff team. Nashville, who look like they've rearmed. And you've got Dallas, who's definitely made themselves better. Colorado, most of us, including myself, see them as a contender. You got Chicago. And then you got Minnesota. This division from top to bottom, pretty darn good. Chicago is capable of getting in there. They had a really long losing streak this year that hurt their chances, basically destroyed their chances of making the playoffs. But they did have points this past season where they looked pretty good. And I think they're a good bet to push for playoffs this year. But again, when you look at the other teams ahead of them, it's hard to figure out who in the Central would fall down and that they would find entry into the playoffs. They have to finish top 5 in the division to make the playoffs. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. How close are the Blackhawks to getting back into the playoffs? Does fixing the goaltending for Chicago do what it should do for Florida as well and get them back into that hunt? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, this isn't a season preview. I'm not putting it all on the line and saying here's where I think they're going to finish in the division. It's just to look at where we're at right now. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.